The gunshot cracked through the afternoon air like thunder. And in that frozen moment, Daniel Hayes made a choice that would shatter the boundaries between two worlds. A poor single father with calloused hands and worn shoes threw himself in front of a terrified pregnant woman as death pointed its barrel at her. The bullet meant for her tore through his shoulder, instead painting the sidewalk crimson as strangers screamed and scattered like leaves in a storm. But the woman he saved wasn't just anyone. She was Sophia Lane, heir to a fortune, and her gratitude would transform everything Daniel thought he knew about sacrifice, destiny, and the true meaning of wealth. My friends, this is a story about how one split-second decision on a crowded street corner changed not just two lives, but generations to come. Follow me to the end of this incredible journey, and please comment below which city you're watching from. I'd love to know how far this story of courage has traveled. Daniel Hayes stood at the corner of Madison and Fifth, his weathered hands gripping a paper bag containing the last of his weekly groceries, a loaf of discount bread, peanut butter, 2 cans of soup, and a small carton of milk that would have to last until Friday. The September sun beat down mercilessly on the concrete jungle of downtown, making the asphalt shimmer like water. He checked his phone for the third time, 2:47 p.m. 13 minutes to get back to his apartment before Mrs. Chen, his elderly neighbor, had to leave for her doctor's appointment. She'd been watching Emma, his 7-year-old daughter, since noon, refusing to take a penny for her kindness. "You just focus on finding work, Daniel," she'd said that morning, her wrinkled face creasing into a smile. Little Emma is no trouble at all. But Daniel knew better. Emma hadn't been no trouble since her mother walked out 2 years ago, leaving nothing but a note that said, "I can't do this anymore." The little girl had nightmares, asked questions Daniel couldn't answer, and sometimes sat by the window for hours watching the street below, as if her mother might suddenly appear. The therapist at the free clinic said it was normal that children processed abandonment differently, but knowing that didn't make it easier when Emma woke up crying at 3 in the morning, asking why mommy didn't love them anymore. The job interview at Morrison Construction had been his 5th this month. They'd looked at his resume, 10 years of experience as a carpenter, excellent references, a clean record, and then asked the question that always came, "Can you work overtime weekends?" "We need someone flexible." "I have a daughter," Daniel had answered honestly. "I can work any hours during the school day, and I can arrange childcare for some evenings, but we'll be in touch." They'd said the same words he'd heard from every potential employer. They never were in touch. As he waited for the crosswalk signal to change, Daniel noticed the woman standing beside him. She couldn't have been more than 25, with auburn hair pulled back in an elegant bun and a designer maternity dress that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Her hand rested protectively on her swollen belly, and she kept glancing at her phone with an expression of barely controlled anxiety. Everything about her screamed money, from the diamond earrings catching the sunlight to the leather handbag that bore some Italian name Daniel couldn't pronounce. She was everything he wasn't, everything he'd never be. Yet something in her eyes reminded him of Emma when she was scared of vulnerability that wealth couldn't shield. "Excuse me," she said, suddenly turning to him. Her voice was cultured, refined, but trembling slightly. "Do you know if there's a police station nearby?" Daniel shifted his grocery bag to his other arm. "About 3 blocks north." "Are you all right, miss?" She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it, her eyes darting over his shoulder. The color drained from her face so quickly that Daniel instinctively turned to look. A man in a black jacket was pushing through the crowd about 30 feet away, his right hand buried in his pocket. His eyes locked on the pregnant woman with an intensity that made Daniel's skin crawl. There was something predatory in his movement, something purposeful and wrong. "Miss," Daniel said quietly, his construction worker instincts for danger kicking in. "Do you know that man?" "Oh, God," she whispered, her hand flying to her belly. "Oh, God, he found me. I thought I'd lost him at the—" The man's hand emerged from his pocket, metal glinting in the afternoon sun. Time slowed to a crawl. Daniel saw the gun rise, saw the pregnant woman freeze like a deer in headlights, saw the gunman's finger tighten on the trigger. His grocery bag hit the ground, cans rolling across the sidewalk. His body moved before his mind could process the decision. Muscle memory from years of protecting Emma from falls, from sharp corners, from all the dangers a father's love could shield against. He slammed into the woman, wrapping his arms around her as he spun, putting his back to the gunman. The world exploded in sound and pain. The bullet punched through his shoulder blade like a sledgehammer wrapped in fire, the impact driving him forward. He heard screaming, maybe his, maybe hers, maybe the crowd's, as they tumbled to the concrete together, his body cushioning her fall, even as agony ripped through his nervous system. "Run," someone shouted. "Call 911. "He's got a gun." Daniel's vision swam darkness, creeping in from the edges. The pregnant woman was beneath him, his blood dripping onto her expensive dress. Her eyes were wide with terror and shocked tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," Daniel whispered, not knowing why he was apologizing. Maybe for bleeding on her. Maybe for not being faster. His hand found hers squeezing weakly. "Your baby. Protect your baby. You saved me." She sobbed, cradling his head as sirens wailed in the distance. "You saved us both. Stay with me. Please, stay with me." But Daniel was already falling into darkness, his last coherent thought not of pain or death, but of Emma. Who would make her peanut butter sandwiches now? Who would check under her bed for monsters? Who would tell her that Daddy loved her more than all the stars in the sky? The ambulance arrived in a chaos of flashing lights and shouting paramedics. They worked on Daniel with practiced efficiency, cutting away his shirt, packing the wound-starting IVs. The pregnant woman refused to let go of his hand even as they loaded him onto the gurney. "Are you family?" a paramedic asked her. No, but..." "Then you need to step back, ma'am." "He saved my life," she screamed, her composure finally shattering completely. "That bullet was meant for me. I'm not leaving him." The paramedic looked at her tear-stained face, at her expensive clothes, now soaked with Daniel's blood, at the fierce determination in her eyes. "Are you hurt the baby?" "I'm fine. We're fine because of him. Please, I have to come with you." They let her ride in the ambulance. She held Daniel's hand as the vehicle screamed through traffic, whispering prayers she hadn't said since childhood. The paramedics worked around her, calling ahead to the hospital, speaking in medical codes that meant nothing and everything. GSW to the right shoulder through and through. Possible pneumothorax. Lost maybe a liter BP dropping. ETA 4 minutes. Daniel's eyes fluttered open for a moment, unfocused and glassy with shock. "Emma," he mumbled. "My daughter. Emma." "She'll be okay," the woman promised, though she had no idea who Emma was. "I'll make sure she's okay. What's your name?" "Daniel Hayes." "I'm Sophia," she said, squeezing his hand tighter. "Sophia Lane, you're going to be okay, Daniel. You have to be okay." But his eyes had already closed again, and the heart monitor's beeping grew more erratic. At St. Mary's Hospital, they rushed Daniel straight into surgery. Sophia was left in the waiting room, her designer dress stiff with drying blood, her hands shaking as she filled out what little information she knew about the man who'd saved her life. The police arrived within minutes, notebooks ready, questions rapid fire. "Miss Lane, can you describe the shooter?" "White male, about 35, brown hair, black jacket. I've seen him before. He's been following me for 3 days." "Do you know why someone would want to hurt you?" Sophia's hand went to her belly. "Because of who my father is. Because of what I inherit. Because..." She broke down sobbing. "That man Daniel, he doesn't even know me. He had groceries, cheap groceries like he was counting every penny, and he threw himself in front of a bullet for a complete stranger." Detective Morrison, a woman with kind eyes and gray-streaked hair, sat beside her. "We've run Mr. Hayes' information. Single father, unemployed carpenter, lives in public housing on the east side. His daughter is 7. "Oh, God," Sophia whispered. "She's just a child. Where is she now?" "A neighbor has been contacted. Mrs. Chen, elderly woman, says she watches the girl often. She's asking about her father." Sophia stood abruptly, swaying slightly as a wave of dizziness hit her. "I need to see her. The little girl Emma. I need to tell her..." "Miss Lane, you should rest. You've been through a trauma. The child's father is in surgery because of me." Sophia's voice cracked with emotion. "The least I can do is make sure she's not alone and terrified. Please, Detective Morrison. If it were your child, wouldn't you want someone to be there? The detective studied her for a long moment, taking in the blood-stained dress, the trembling hands, the fierce determination burning through the shock. I'll drive you myself, but first you need to be examined. You're pregnant and falls can be dangerous. The examination was quick. Baby's heartbeat strong, no signs of distress, some bruising where Daniel had grabbed her to shield her, but nothing serious. The doctor, an older man with gentle hands, shook his head in amazement. Mr. Hayes positioned himself perfectly to protect you. The way you fell, the way he cushioned you, it's like he knew exactly how to keep you and the baby safe. You're very lucky. He's the one with a bullet hole in his shoulder, Sophia said bitterly. How is that lucky? Because you're both alive, the doctor replied simply. In my 20 years of emergency medicine, I've seen too many situations where everyone loses. This time there's hope. Detective Morrison drove her to Daniel's apartment building, a rundown complex that made Sophia's stomach clench with guilt. The hallways smelled of old cooking and despair, the walls were tagged with graffiti, and half the lights were burned out. This was where the man who'd saved her life lived. This was the world he navigated every day with his daughter. Mrs. Chen answered the door on the second knock, a tiny Chinese woman with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen everything. Behind her, a little girl with Daniel's dark hair and serious eyes peered out anxiously. You're the woman from the news, Mrs. Chen said, not a question but a statement. They're already showing it on TV. Is Daniel? He's in surgery, Sophia said, her eyes locked on Emma. The little girl was clutching a worn teddy bear, her face pale with fear. He's strong. The doctors are doing everything they can. Are you the lady my daddy saved? Emma asked in a small voice. Sophia knelt down, her expensive dress pooling on the stained hallway carpet. Yes, sweetheart, I am. Your daddy is the bravest man I've ever met. He's always brave, Emma said solemnly. He checks under my bed for monsters every night, even when he's really tired. Is he going to come home? The question shattered Sophia's composure. She pulled the little girl into a hug, feeling the child's thin shoulders shake with suppressed sobs. We're going to do everything we can to bring him home, Emma. Everything. And until he's better, I'm going to make sure you're okay. Is that all right? Emma pulled back slightly, studying Sophia's face with eyes too old for 7. Daddy says we shouldn't take charity. We make our own way. This isn't charity, Sophia said firmly. Your daddy gave me and my baby the most precious gift anyone could give our lives. I'm just trying to say thank you. Will you let me try? Emma looked at Mrs. Chen, who nodded encouragingly. Okay, the little girl whispered. But Daddy won't like it. He's proud. I know, Sophia said, standing and taking Emma's small hand in hers. But sometimes being proud means letting people help when you've helped them. Come on, let's go back to the hospital. Your daddy will want to see you when he wakes up. The surgery took 4 hours. 4 hours of Sophia pacing the waiting room with Emma curled up in a chair beside her, the teddy bear clutched tight. 4 hours of Mrs. Chen knitting in the corner, her needles clicking rhythmically like a meditation. 4 hours of news vans gathering outside of reporters trying to get statements of Sophia's phone ringing incessantly with calls from her father's security team, his lawyers, his personal assistant. She ignored them all. Her world had narrowed to this waiting room, this child, this moment. When the surgeon finally emerged, still in his scrubs with fatigue etched into every line of his face, Sophia and Emma both jumped to their feet. Mr. Hayes made it through surgery, he said immediately, and Sophia felt her knees nearly buckle with relief. The bullet did significant damage, fractured his scapula, nicked his subclavian artery, collapsed his right lung. We've repaired what we could, but recovery will be long and difficult. He'll need physical therapy, possibly multiple surgeries. He's lucky to be alive. Can I see him? Emma asked in a tiny voice. The surgeon's expression softened. He's still unconscious, sweetheart, but yes, sometimes hearing familiar voices helps. Just for a few minutes, though. They were led to the ICU, where Daniel lay surrounded by machines that beeped and hummed. He looked smaller, somehow, diminished, his face pale against the white pillows. Emma climbed carefully onto the chair beside his bed, her little hand finding his larger one. Hi, Daddy, she whispered. The pretty lady says you were brave. But I already knew that. You're always brave. Mrs. Chen is here too. She made you cookies for when you wake up, the ones with chocolate chips that you pretend you don't like but always eat anyway. Sophia stood at the foot of the bed, tears streaming down her face. This man, this stranger, had given up everything for her. His health, possibly his ability to work, maybe even his life, all for a woman he'd never met. "Mr. Hayes," she said quietly. "Daniel, I don't know if you can hear me, but I need you to know something. What you did today, I'll never be able to repay it, but I'm going to try. Your daughter needs you, and I'm going to make sure you both have everything you need to get through this. I promise you that." Daniel's fingers twitched slightly in Emma's grip, though his eyes remained closed. "He squeezed my hand," Emma exclaimed. "Daddy, can you hear me?" But there was no other response, just the steady beep of the heart monitor and the whisper of the ventilator. Over the next 3 days, Sophia barely left the hospital. She set up a rotation with Mrs. Chen to watch Emma, arranged for food to be delivered, and dealt with the endless stream of police questions, insurance forms, and media requests. The story had exploded across the news: homeless hero saves heiress, single father's sacrifice, a bullet for a stranger. Every channel wanted interviews, exclusive, the inside story. Sophia gave one statement to the press standing outside the hospital with Emma's permission, the little girl's hand in hers. "Daniel Hayes is not just a hero," she said, looking directly into the cameras. "He's a father who wakes up every day and fights for his daughter in a world that's given him very little. He didn't know who I was when he saved me. He just saw a pregnant woman in danger and didn't hesitate. That's the kind of man he is. Now it's our turn, all of us, to show that heroism is recognized, that sacrifice matters, that good men don't face their battles alone." Within hours, donations started pouring in. A GoFundMe page crashed from too much traffic. People sent cards, flowers, toys for Emma, offers of jobs for when Daniel recovered. The overwhelming response seemed to bewilder Emma, who was used to a world where they had to count every penny. "Why are all these people being nice to us?" she asked Sophia one evening as they sat in the hospital cafeteria, Emma picking at a sandwich. "Because your daddy reminded them that there are still good people in the world," Sophia replied. "Sometimes we forget that. We get caught up in our own problems, our own fears, and we forget that we're all connected. Your daddy's courage reminded everyone of what really matters." "What really matters?" Emma asked, her serious eyes fixed on Sophia's face. Sophia's hand went to her belly where her own child was growing. "Protecting each other, taking care of each other. Love, really, even for strangers." Emma considered this for a moment. "Daddy says love isn't just a feeling, it's what you do. Your daddy is a wise man. Is that why you keep coming here, because of love?" The question caught Sophia off guard. She'd been asking herself the same thing. Was it guilt that kept her here? Obligation? Or was it something deeper, a recognition that this man and his daughter had shown her something precious about humanity that all her wealth and privilege had never taught her? "I think," she said slowly, "that when someone saves your life, you become connected to them. Your daddy gave me and my baby a future. The least I can do is make sure he and you have one too." Emma nodded, seemingly satisfied with this answer. "My mommy left because she said love wasn't enough. But Daddy stayed. He always stays. And he'll keep staying," Sophia promised, though she could see the doubt in Emma's eyes. The child had already learned that people leave, that promises break, that love sometimes isn't enough. On the 4th day, Daniel woke up. Sophia was alone with him. Emma at school with assurances that she'd be called immediately if there was any change. She was reading emails on her phone, coordinating with her father's foundation about setting up a trust for Emma's education, when she heard a soft groan. Daniel's eyes were open, confused, and unfocused, but definitely open. "Don't try to move," she said quickly, pressing the call button for the nurse. "You're in the hospital. You're safe." His eyes found hers, and she saw the moment recognition dawned. His lips moved, but no sound came out. She grabbed the cup of ice chips the nurses had left, spooning a few into his mouth. "Emma," he whispered, his voice like sandpaper. "She's perfect. She's at school, Mrs. Chen has been helping, and I've been making sure she's okay." Daniel's eyes studied her, taking in the designer clothes, the expensive jewelry, the whole package that screamed money. You're the woman, the woman you saved. Yes, I'm Sophia Lane. Lane. His eyes widened slightly. Lane Industries. Harrison Lane's daughter. That's not important right now. We can't accept. He tried to sit up, gasping as pain shot through his shoulder. Stop, Sophia said firmly, gently pressing him back. Please, just stop. You saved my life, my baby's life. Do you understand what that means? My father is Harrison Lane, yes, which means someone wanted me dead for money, for revenge, for who knows what reason. And you, a complete stranger, took a bullet for me. So please don't talk to me about what you can or can't accept. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, his eyes never leaving her face. Is he the shooter? In custody. He was hired, we think, by someone who stands to gain from my death. The investigation is ongoing, but you're safe. Emma's safe. There's security now, discreet, but there. I can't afford security. You're not paying for it. My father is. And before you argue, consider this: the man who tried to kill me knows you stopped him. That makes you and Emma potential targets. This isn't charity, Mr. Hayes. It's responsibility. Daniel closed his eyes, and for a moment Sophia thought he'd fallen back asleep. Then he spoke so quietly she had to lean forward to hear him. I didn't even think. I just saw the gun saw you freeze and my body moved, like when Emma was 2 and ran toward the street. You don't think, you just move. That's what makes it heroic, Sophia said softly. The fact that you didn't think, you just acted to protect someone who needed protecting. I'm not a hero. I'm just a father who can't even find a job. You're a father who taught his daughter that love is what you do, not just what you feel. She told me that. 7 years old, and she already knows the most important truth in the world because you taught her. Daniel's eyes opened again, and this time they were clearer, more focused. You've been talking to Emma. Every day. She's remarkable, Mr. Hayes, brave and wise and kind, just like her father. Her mother, Emma, told me. I'm sorry. Don't be. We're better off. I mean, Emma deserves better than a mother who could just walk away, but it still hurts her. She still asks why. What do you tell her? Daniel was quiet for so long that Sophia thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I tell her that sometimes people are broken in ways that love can't fix. That it wasn't about her, wasn't her fault, but I don't think she believes me. She will. When she's older, she'll understand. And she'll know that she had one parent who stayed, who fought for her, who threw himself in front of a bullet for a stranger, because that's who he is. A knock at the door interrupted them. A doctor entered, followed by a man Sophia recognized as her father's personal physician, Dr. Marcus Webb. Miss Lane, your father insisted I consult on Mr. Hayes's case. Dr. Webb said, his tone professional but warm. I've reviewed his charts. With your permission, Mr. Hayes, I'd like to discuss your treatment plan. Daniel looked between them, clearly overwhelmed. I can't afford. Mr. Hayes, Dr. Webb interrupted gently. You saved Harrison Lane's daughter and grandchild. Your medical expenses are covered completely, including rehabilitation and any subsequent surgeries. Mr. Lane was quite insistent on that point. Additionally, he continued, pulling up a chair, we've consulted with the best orthopedic surgeons in the country. Your shoulder will require at least 2 more surgeries for full reconstruction, followed by 6 months of intensive physical therapy. But we believe you can regain full function. Will I be able to work? Daniel asked, and Sophia heard the desperate hope in his voice. I'm a carpenter. I need my arms, my strength. With proper treatment and rehabilitation, yes. It will take time, possibly a year, but yes. Daniel's eyes closed and Sophia saw tears leak from beneath his lids. A year without work. A year of relying on others. For a man who'd fought so hard to be independent, it must feel like a life sentence. Mr. Hayes, Sophia said quietly, I know what you're thinking, but you're not going to go through this alone. I've already arranged. No. His eyes opened fierce despite the pain medication. No charity. I won't have Emma growing up thinking, well, thinking what? That when her father saved 2 lives, those lives were grateful. that heroism is recognized and rewarded, that good deeds create ripples of good in return. Sophia's voice rose slightly, frustration creeping in. Your pride is admirable, Mr. Hayes, but right now it's also stupid. The room went silent. Dr. Webb cleared his throat uncomfortably and excused himself, saying he'd return later to discuss specifics. Daniel stared at Sophia and she stared back, refusing to back down. You don't understand, he finally said. I've been on my own since I was 16. Foster care before that. I've never had anyone to rely on, never had backup. Everything Emma has, everything she is, I built with these hands. He raised his left hand, slightly grimacing at the movement. Taking help. It feels like failure. No, Sophia said firmly. Refusing help when your daughter needs you to heal, that would be failure. I'm not offering charity, Mr. Hayes. I'm offering partnership. You saved my child's life before they were even born. Let me help save your daughter's future. Partnership. I run my father's charitable foundation. We fund educational programs, job training, community development. I want to create a scholarship program, the Daniel Hayes Fund, for single parents in education. You'd be our first recipient, but not our last. You could go back to school, get your contractor's license, start your own business, and when you're successful, which you will be, you'll help fund the next parent who needs a chance. Daniel was quiet, processing. You don't need to create a whole program just for, I'm creating it because you showed me something I'd forgotten living in my bubble of privilege. There are thousands of parents like you, Mr. Hayes. Good people, hard workers held back by circumstances beyond their control. One medical bill, one car breakdown, one lost job away from disaster. Your sacrifice reminded me why my family has money to make a difference. Before Daniel could respond, the door burst open and Emma ran in, still in her school uniform, Mrs. Chen hurrying behind her. Daddy! Emma threw herself at the bed, stopping just short of jumping on him. You're awake. I drew you pictures, and Ms. Johnson says you're a hero, and Bobby Martinez says his dad saw you on TV, and... Slow down, baby girl, Daniel said, his good arm reaching out to pull her close. I'm okay. Everything's okay. Emma's face crumpled, and suddenly she was crying. Great gulping sobs as 2 weeks of fear and uncertainty came pouring out. I thought you were going to die like Mommy left and I'd be all alone and... Never, Daniel said fiercely, holding her as tight as his injuries allowed. You hear me, Emma Marie Hayes? I will never leave you. Never. I'll fight through anything to stay with you. Sophia stepped back, giving them space, but Emma looked up and held out her free hand to her. Sophia stayed, she told her father. Even when the doctor said you might not wake up, she stayed. Daniel looked at Sophia over his daughter's head, and she saw something shift in his expression. The walls he'd built, the pride that kept him isolated, she saw them crack just a little. Thank you, he said simply. No, Sophia replied, her hand on her belly. Thank you. The next weeks blurred together in a symphony of small victories and setbacks. Daniel's first surgery to repair additional ligament damage. Emma's birthday celebrated in the hospital cafeteria with a cake Sophia had specially made. The news coverage dying down, replaced by other tragedies, other heroes. The quiet moments when Sophia would sit with Daniel during his physical therapy, watching him grit his teeth through the pain, determined to regain function. Why do you keep coming? He asked one afternoon after a particularly brutal session that left him gray-faced and sweating. You have your own life, your own baby to prepare for. Sophia considered the question. She'd been asking herself the same thing. Her father thought she was traumatized, fixated on Daniel because of survivor's guilt. Her therapist suggested she was sublimating her fear about the assassination attempt into a need to control Daniel's recovery. Her friends thought she was either crazy or playing out some romance novel fantasy, but the truth was simpler and more complex than any of that. Because you saw me, she said finally, not Sophia Lane heiress. Not Harrison Lane's daughter, not a bank account or a news story. You just saw a scared pregnant woman who needed help. Do you know how rare that is in my world, to be seen as just human? Daniel shifted uncomfortably in his wheelchair. They were in the hospital garden, autumn sun filtering through the leaves. Emma was at school, and for once they were alone without nurses or doctors or Mrs. Chen's watchful presence. That's not, and because Emma needs to see that good deeds matter, that when someone does something extraordinary, the world responds. She's been let down by so many people already. She needs to believe in goodness. She believes in you, Daniel said quietly. She talks about you constantly. Sophia said this, Sophia thinks that. You've become her hero. Her father is her hero. I'm just a friend. Are you? Daniel's dark eyes studied her intently. A friend? The question hung between them, loaded with implications neither was ready to explore. Sophia was still dealing with the trauma of the assassination attempt, still trying to figure out who wanted her dead and why. Daniel was focused on healing, on providing for Emma, on maintaining his dignity in a situation that stripped it away daily. But there was something there, a connection forged in blood and sacrifice that went beyond gratitude or obligation. I'd like to be, Sophia said carefully, if you'll let me. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, watching the leaves fall. I don't know how to be friends with someone like you. We're from different worlds. No, Sophia said firmly. We're from the same world. The one where parents will do anything for their children. The one where courage matters more than money. The one where a 7-year-old girl can lose her mother and still believe in love because her father teaches her every day what it looks like. Daniel's jaw tightened and she saw him blink rapidly. You make me sound better than I am. I make you sound exactly as you are. You just can't see it because you're too busy surviving to realize you're extraordinary. Before Daniel could respond to Sophia's words about him being extraordinary, his physical therapist arrived, wheeling him back inside for another grueling session. But her words echoed in his mind as he struggled through the exercises, as his shoulder screamed in protest, as sweat dripped down his face despite the pain medication that never quite dulled everything. The assassination attempt had changed everything yet in the quiet moments between treatments. Between Emma's visits, between Sophia's unexpected presence in their lives, Daniel found himself grappling with more than just physical recovery. He was confronting the walls he'd built around his heart walls that had kept him and Emma safe, but also isolated walls that Sophia seemed to walk through as if they were made of mist. 3 weeks into his recovery, Detective Morrison arrived with news that shifted everything again. She found Daniel in his room, Sophia beside him going through job training programs on her tablet, while Emma did homework in the corner. We've made an arrest, Morrison said without preamble. Not just the shooter, the person who hired him. Sophia's face went pale. Who? Your stepbrother, Ms. Lane, Marcus Webb. The tablet slipped from Sophia's nerveless fingers, clattering on the floor. Marcus, but he's family. My father remarried when I was 12. Marcus was 15. We grew up together. He's also deeply in debt, Morrison continued grimly. Gambling debts to some very dangerous people. Your father's will leaves everything to you and your child. If something happened to you before the baby was born, it would all go to my father, Sophia whispered. And if something happened to him, Marcus would inherit as the only other legal heir. Morrison's expression was sympathetic but firm. He's confessed, Ms. Lane. The gambling debts were over $3 million. The people he owed were threatening his life. He saw your pregnancy as his timeline act before the baby was born, make it look like a random street crime. Daniel watched Sophia crumble, her composed exterior shattering like glass. She'd held it together through the shooting, through his surgery, through weeks of hospital vigils, but this betrayal by family broke something inside her. He came to my baby shower, she said numbly. He brought a silver rattle, said he couldn't wait to be an uncle. He knew he was going to try to kill us, and he brought a gift for the baby he planned to murder. Emma looked up from her homework, her young face concerned. She quietly got up and walked over to Sophia, climbing onto the bed beside her and taking her hand. The simple gesture from a child who knew too well what betrayal felt like made Sophia break down completely. Daniel reached out with his good arm, pulling both Sophia and Emma closer. It's not your fault, he said firmly. People make choices. Marcus made his. You didn't cause this. How did you know? Sophia asked through her tears. When someone was going to hurt you, how did you see it coming? I didn't, Daniel admitted. Sarah, Emma's mother. I never saw it coming. Came home from work one day and she was just gone. No warning, no signs I recognized. Sometimes the people we trust most are the ones who hurt us deepest. Mommy was sick in her heart, Emma said solemnly. That's what Daddy says. Not sick like a cold, but sick in the way she felt things. It made her leave. That's very wise, Emma, Detective Morrison said gently. She turned back to Sophia. We'll need you to come to the station tomorrow for a formal statement. Your father is already there with his lawyers. My father? Sophia straightened slightly. Does he know about Marcus? He's the one who found the financial records that led us to him. Your father's suspected family was involved and hired private investigators. I'm sorry, Ms. Lane. I know this is difficult. After Morrison left, the room fell into heavy silence. Daniel could feel Sophia trembling beside him, could see Emma watching them both with those two knowing eyes. You need to go home, he said gently to Sophia. Talk to your father. Deal with this. I can't, Sophia whispered. That house, knowing Marcus was there planning, I can't go back there. Then stay, Emma said simply. Daddy and I don't have much room, but when we get out of here, you can stay with us. Right, Daddy? Daniel's heart clenched at his daughter's innocent offer. Their apartment was barely big enough for the two of them in a building Sophia wouldn't normally even drive through. But Emma was right. Sometimes home wasn't about space or luxury. It was about feeling safe. Emma, Ms. Lane has her own home. No, Sophia interrupted. Emma's right. Home is where people don't try to kill you for money, where little girls do their homework while their fathers fight through pain, where neighbors like Mrs. Chen bring cookies and gossip and never ask for anything in return. She looked at Daniel, her eyes still wet with tears but fierce with determination. If the offer stands, I'd like to stay close. Not in your apartment. I'll find my own place nearby, somewhere I can start over, somewhere my baby can grow up knowing what real courage looks like. Daniel wanted to protest, to point out the obvious problems with a billionaire's daughter moving to the east side, but something in Sophia's expression stopped him. She'd lost her family today, discovered that blood meant nothing when money was involved. She needed something real to hold on to. There's a unit available in our building, he heard himself saying. 2 bedrooms. The Johnsons just moved out. It's nothing like what you're used to. Good, Sophia said firmly. What I'm used to almost got me killed. Over the next week, Sophia threw herself into transformation with the same intensity she'd once applied to charity galas and board meetings. She hired movers to pack up her penthouse, put most of her belongings in storage, and kept only what she needed. She met with lawyers to restructure her inheritance, creating trusts and foundations that Marcus could never have touched. She visited Daniel every day, but now there was a different energy to her presence, not the desperate gratitude of a saved victim, but the determined rebuilding of a survivor. You're running, Daniel said one afternoon, watching her direct furniture delivery to her new apartment via video call on her phone. You don't have to live like us to prove something. I'm not running, Sophia corrected, wincing as she watched the mover struggle with a crib up the narrow stairs. I'm choosing. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing based on what I want, not what's expected. Do you know what it's like to have every decision made for you? What school to attend, who to date, where to live, what charity to support. Even this baby. She touched her belly. The father was someone my dad approved of. Investment banker, good family, perfect on paper. When I told him I was pregnant, he offered to pay for it to go away because a baby would interfere with his promotion timeline. Daniel's jaw tightened. Where is he now? London. We ended things months ago. He doesn't even know someone tried to kill me. Probably wouldn't care if he did one less complication. She smiled bitterly. Marcus wasn't the only one who saw me as a bank account. He was just the only one willing to kill for it. That's not true, Daniel said quietly. Emma doesn't see you that way. Mrs. Chen doesn't. I don't. No, Sophia agreed, her expression softening. You saw a pregnant woman who needed help. That's all. That's everything. Daniel's second surgery was scheduled for the following Monday. The surgeon, Dr. Webb, explained it would be more complex than the first, requiring grafts to repair tendon damage. Recovery would be longer, more painful. Emma clung to him the night before, afraid to let go. What if something goes wrong? She whispered into his chest. What if you don't wake up like last time? I'll wake up, Daniel promised, stroking her hair. I've got too much to wake up for. You for starters, Mrs. Chen's cookies, seeing you graduate from second grade next month. And Sophia? Emma asked innocently. Will you wake up for her too? Daniel's hand stilled. Emma. She likes you, Daddy. Not like the nurses who think you're handsome. She likes you like you're important. We're friends, baby girl. She's grateful because... No, Emma interrupted with the startling clarity children sometimes possessed. She looks at you the way you used to look at Mommy before Mommy got sick in her heart, like you're worth looking at. Daniel didn't know how to respond to that. The truth was he'd been trying not to notice the way Sophia's presence had become essential to his days, the way her smile made the pain more bearable, the way she challenged him and comforted him in equal measure. She was carrying another man's child, dealing with family betrayal, living in a world so far removed from his own that they might as well be from different planets. Whatever Emma thought she saw was impossible. But that night, as he lay in his hospital bed, unable to sleep before surgery, Sophia appeared in his doorway. She was wearing jeans and a sweater instead of her usual designer clothes, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, her face free of makeup. She looked younger, vulnerable, real. Can't sleep either, she asked softly. Pre-surgery jitters, he admitted. The baby's doing gymnastics. She moved into the room, settling into the chair beside his bed. Plus, I needed to tell you something, in case nothing's going to go wrong tomorrow. I know, but still. She took a breath. My father came to see me today. He offered to buy me a house anywhere I wanted, higher security, make sure I never had to worry about anything again. He meant well. He always means well. But all I could think was that I'd rather be in that tiny apartment next to yours, where Emma does homework at your kitchen table and Mrs. Chen complains about the stairs, than in any mansion he could buy. Sophia, I'm not finished. She leaned forward, her eyes intense in the dim light. You asked why I keep coming here. The truth is, I've been trying to figure that out myself. It started as guilt, then gratitude, then friendship. But somewhere along the way, it became something else. You and Emma, you've shown me what courage really looks like. Not grand gestures or dramatic sacrifices, but getting up every day and choosing to keep going, to keep loving, even when the world gives you every reason to stop. Daniel's heart was racing, the monitors betraying his agitation. You're emotional. The pregnancy, the trauma, Marcus. Don't, Sophia said sharply. Don't dismiss what I'm feeling. I've had people manage my emotions my whole life. I know what I feel, Daniel. I'm falling in love with you, with your strength, your pride, your frustrating stubbornness, with the way you read Emma the same story 3 times when she can't sleep, with the way you fight through pain without complaining, with the man who saw a stranger in danger and didn't hesitate. The room fell silent except for the steady beep of machines. Daniel stared at her, this woman who'd upended his carefully controlled life, who'd brought chaos and possibility in equal measure. I'm nobody, he said finally. A broke single father who can't even work. I'm the woman whose life you saved, the woman who watches you with your daughter and sees what kind of man you really are. The woman who's choosing to raise her child in a tiny apartment in a rough neighborhood because that's where real love lives. She stood leaning over to kiss his forehead gently. You don't have to say anything, just survive tomorrow. Wake up. That's all I need. She left before he could respond, leaving him alone with the thundering of his heart and the impossible hope blooming in his chest. The surgery was longer than expected. Complications arose, scar tissue from the bullet wound, unexpected nerve involvement. Emma sat in the waiting room with Sophia and Mrs. Chen doing her homework with determined focus, as if normal activities could guarantee normal outcomes. He's strong, Mrs. Chen said for the 10th time, her knitting needles clicking rhythmically. Strongest man I know. I know, Sophia replied, her hand on her belly where her baby kicked restlessly. But strong people break too. Not Daniel, Emma said firmly, not looking up from her math worksheet. Daddy bends, but he doesn't break. He told me that. Like the buildings he used to build, they sway in earthquakes, but they don't fall down. 7 hours. 7 hours of surgery, of waiting, of Emma's quiet faith and Sophia's silent prayers, and Mrs. Chen's endless knitting. When Dr. Webb finally emerged exhausted but smiling, they all stood as one. "He did beautifully," the doctor said immediately. "We were able to repair more damage than anticipated. The nerve involvement was tricky, but we believe we've restored full function. Recovery will be long, but his prognosis is excellent." Emma burst into tears of relief, throwing herself into Sophia's arms. Mrs. Chen muttered prayers in Mandarin, her weathered hands clasped together. Sophia held Emma tight, her own tears falling freely. "Can we see him?" Emma asked. "He'll be unconscious for several hours, but yes, briefly." In recovery, Daniel looked even more vulnerable than before. His shoulder, completely immobilized, tubes and wires everywhere. Emma climbed carefully onto the bed beside him, whispering about her math test and the new boy in class who ate paste. Sophia stood back watching them, her heart so full it hurt. "He loves you, you know," Mrs. Chen said quietly beside her. "He just doesn't know how to love someone who doesn't need him." "Everyone needs love," Sophia replied. "Yes, but Daniel needs to be needed. It's how he shows love, by being necessary. You have to teach him that wanting someone is just as important as needing them." The old woman's wisdom hit deep, and Sophia found herself thinking about it over the next weeks as Daniel recovered. He was frustrated by his limitations, angry at his dependence, pushing himself too hard in physical therapy. He was pulling away from her, rebuilding the walls she'd thought were coming down. "You should find a better place," he said one afternoon, 2 weeks post-surgery. "This neighborhood isn't safe for you and the baby." "We've been fine," Sophia countered. She was 8 months pregnant now, moving slower but still coming to every therapy session. "Emma walks me home from the bus stop every day. Mrs. Chen teaches me to cook. The Rodriguez family invited me to their daughter's quinceañera. I'm more at home here than I ever was in my penthouse." "This isn't your world, Sophia." "No, then what is my world? The one where my stepbrother tried to murder me, where my ex-boyfriend saw our child as an inconvenience, where people smile at my face while calculating my net worth." She moved closer, awkward, with her belly between them. "This is my world now, Daniel, the one I choose. The one where people share what little they have instead of hoarding what they don't need. The one where you exist." "I'm your charity case," he said bitterly. "Your project. Save the poor single father feel better about your privilege." The words were meant to hurt, and they did. Sophia stepped back as if slapped. "Is that really what you think? I think you're pregnant and scared and grateful and confused. When the baby comes, when you remember who you are, you'll leave. Just like—" He stopped, but the damage was done. "Just like Emma's mother," Sophia finished quietly. "You think I'm just another woman who'll abandon you when things get hard?" "Aren't you?" Daniel's eyes were hard defensive. "Look at you, Sophia. Look at where you are. You're playing at being poor, but you could leave any time. One phone call to Daddy, and you're back in your castle." "You're right," Sophia said, her voice deadly calm. "I could leave. I have choices Sarah didn't have. But here's what you're missing, Daniel. I choose to stay. Every day I choose this, not because I have to, not because I'm trapped, but because this is where I want to be. With you, with Emma, with this community that's shown me more kindness than any country club ever did." "Why?" The word tore from him raw and desperate. "Why would you choose this, choose us?" "Because you make me brave," she said simply. "Because Emma makes me laugh. Because Mrs. Chen makes me feel like family. Because when I walk into your apartment, I'm not Sophia Lane the heiress. I'm just Sophia who burns rice and can't figure out Emma's math homework and watches you sleep sometimes because even in pain you look peaceful." Daniel stared at her, his defenses crumbling. "You watch me sleep. Sometimes, when the nightmares wake me up, the ones where the bullet doesn't miss." She moved closer again carefully. "I know you're scared. I know trusting someone who could leave is terrifying. But Daniel, everyone could leave. The only difference between me and anyone else is that I have more resources if I choose to stay. And if you don't, then you'll survive just like you did before. But I'm betting on something different. I'm betting on us." Before Daniel could respond, Emma burst through the door, home from school with a paper clutched in her hand. "Daddy." "Sophia, look, I got Student of the Month. They're putting my picture on the wall and everything." The moment shattered and reformed around Emma's joy. Daniel's face transformed pride, pushing away the fear and anger. That's amazing, baby girl. Come here, show me. Emma climbed onto his good side, chattering about the ceremony and the certificate and how Bobby Martinez was jealous. Sophia watched them, her hand on her belly, and made a decision. We should celebrate, she announced. Pizza tonight, my treat, and Emma gets to pick the movie. Can Mrs. Chen come? Emma asked hopefully. Of course, it's not a party without Mrs. Chen. That evening, crowded into Daniel's tiny apartment with pizza boxes and Disney movies, something shifted. Maybe it was Emma falling asleep against Sophia's shoulder. Maybe it was Mrs. Chen regaling them with stories of her youth in China. Maybe it was the way Daniel's hand found Sophia's across the couch, tentative but sure. Stay, he whispered later after Emma was in bed and Mrs. Chen had gone home. Not tonight, not like that. But stay. In our lives, in this messy, complicated, impossible thing we're building. I was never planning to leave, Sophia whispered back. 3 weeks later, Sophia's water broke in the middle of Emma's dance recital. She tried to hide it at first, not wanting to disrupt Emma's big moment, but Daniel noticed her grip tightening on his good hand, saw the way she was breathing carefully through her nose. Hospital, he whispered. After Emma's solo, now. They slipped out as quietly as possible, but Emma saw them leaving from the stage. Instead of being upset, she grinned and gave them a thumbs up, continuing her dance with even more enthusiasm. She knows, Sophia gasped through a contraction. She's been watching you like a hawk for days. Kids got instincts. Daniel was already calling Mrs. Chen, arranging for her to pick up Emma after the recital. The labor was quick, almost too quick. They barely made it to the hospital before Sophia was fully dilated, crushing Daniel's hand through contractions that came fast and hard. I'm scared, she admitted between pains. What if I'm like my stepmother? What if I can't love this baby because of how it was conceived? What if— Stop, Daniel said firmly, wiping sweat from her forehead with his free hand. You already love this baby. I've watched you talk to them, sing to them, protect them. You're going to be an amazing mother. How do you know? Because you chose to be, just like you chose us. Just like you choose every day to be more than what was expected of you. The baby came with the dawn screaming and perfect, a daughter with Sophia's nose and her father's dark hair. Sophia cried as they placed the baby on her chest, overwhelmed by the fierce love that flooded through her. She's perfect, Daniel whispered, his own eyes wet. What's her name? Sophia looked up at him. This man who'd saved them both, who'd shown her what real strength looked like. Grace, she said. Grace Sarah Hayes. Daniel froze. Sophia, you can't. I can, and I did. She wouldn't exist without you. Neither of us would. If you're okay with it, I'd like her to have your name. I'd like her to grow up knowing that families are made by choice, not just blood. The father signed away his rights months ago, didn't want the complications. She shifted the baby slightly, looking into her tiny face. But she has a father figure if he'll have us. Someone who'll teach her about courage and sacrifice and love that shows up every day. Daniel was quiet for so long that Sophia worried she'd overstepped. Then he reached out with his good hand, his finger gently touching Grace's tiny fist. The baby grabbed on immediately, holding tight. Emma's going to be insufferable, he said roughly. She's been asking for a sister for years. Is that a yes? That's a, we need to talk about a lot of things. That's a, this is complicated and messy and probably impossible. That's a, my shoulder's still wrecked and I can't work and I have nothing to offer you. That's not a no, Sophia said, smiling through her exhaustion. No, Daniel agreed, leaning down to kiss Grace's head, then hesitantly Sophia's forehead. It's definitely not a no. Emma arrived an hour later, still in her recital costume, practically vibrating with excitement. Mrs. Chen had to physically restrain her from jumping on the bed. Is that my sister? She demanded. Can I hold her? What's her name? Does she like me? Her name is Grace, Sophia said carefully, transferring the baby to Emma's waiting arms. Grace Sarah Hayes, and I think she already loves you. Emma's eyes went wide. She has our name like she's really ours. If you'll have us, Sophia said carefully. Both of us. Emma looked between Sophia, the baby, and her father, her 7-year-old face serious with consideration. Are you going to marry my daddy? Emma, Daniel protested, but his daughter ignored him. Because if you are, you should know he snores, and he can't cook anything but scrambled eggs, and he cries at the end of Toy Story 3. But he also tells the best bedtime stories, and he never forgets promises, and he loves really, really big. Those are good things to know, Sophia said solemnly. And if you're going to be my mom, you should know I don't like broccoli, and sometimes I have bad dreams, and I still miss my first mom even though she left. Emma's voice got smaller. Is that okay? Sophia reached out, pulling Emma and Grace close, feeling Daniel's hand on her shoulder. That's more than okay, sweetheart. That's perfect. The first night home with Grace was a revelation in chaos. Sophia's tiny apartment, which had seemed perfectly adequate when she'd moved in, suddenly felt impossibly small with a crying newborn, an excited 7-year-old who didn't want to go to bed, and Daniel trying to help with one functional arm while still recovering from his surgeries. She won't stop crying, Sophia said desperately, at 2 a.m, walking Grace back and forth across the small living room. I've fed her, changed her, burped her. What am I doing wrong? Daniel watched from the couch where he'd been relegated after trying to take Grace with his bad arm. You're not doing anything wrong. Sometimes babies just cry. Emma screamed for 3 months straight. I did not, Emma protested from her makeshift bed on the floor. She'd refused to go back to their apartment, insisting she needed to be near her sister. You did, baby girl. Your mom and I took shifts walking you around the parking lot at 3 a.m. because it was the only thing that calmed you down. The mention of Sarah hung in the air for a moment, but it didn't feel as heavy as it once had. Emma had been processing her mother's absence differently since Grace arrived, as if having Sophia and the baby somehow made the old wound less raw. Let me try something, Mrs. Chen said, appearing in the doorway with her spare key. None of them were surprised to see her. She'd been checking on them every few hours since they'd come home from the hospital. She took Grace from Sophia's exhausted arms and began humming something low and rhythmic, swaying in a way that seemed to defy her elderly frame. Within minutes, Grace quieted, her tiny fists uncurling as she settled into sleep. How did you do that? Sophia whispered in awe. Raised 4 babies in a one-room apartment in Beijing, Mrs. Chen replied, carefully transferring Grace to her bassinet. You learn tricks. Also, she was picking up on your anxiety. Babies are like little emotional sponges. I don't know what I'm doing, Sophia admitted, collapsing next to Daniel on the couch. I read all the books, took the classes, but none of them prepared me for this. What if I'm terrible at this? What if Grace grows up knowing I was lost from day one? Every parent feels that way, Daniel said, carefully putting his good arm around her. Sarah was terrified when Emma was born. She'd had this perfect vision of motherhood, and then reality hit. Screaming babies, no sleep hormones everywhere. It's not about being perfect, it's about showing up. Is that why she left? Emma asked quietly from her pile of blankets. Because it was too hard. Daniel and Sophia exchanged glances. Emma rarely asked about her mother anymore, but when she did, the questions were always loaded with more than childish curiosity. I think, Daniel said carefully, your mom left because she was fighting battles inside herself that made everything else feel impossible. It wasn't about you being too hard to love Emma. It was about her not knowing how to love herself. Do you think she ever thinks about me? I'm sure she does, Sophia said, moving to sit beside Emma on the floor. How could she not? You're amazing. But thinking isn't the same as staying, Emma said with that devastating clarity she sometimes possessed. No, Daniel agreed. It's not. But that's why we hold on tight to the people who do stay. Emma looked at Grace sleeping peacefully in her bassinet, then at Sophia and her father. We're staying, right? All of us. All of us. Sophia confirmed, pulling Emma close. The next weeks blurred together in a haze of feedings and diapers and Daniel's physical therapy appointments. Sophia's father had tried to hire a night nurse, a nanny, any kind of help, but Sophia had refused. She wanted to do this herself to prove she could, to build something real from the ground up the way Daniel had with Emma. But it was harder than she'd imagined. Grace was colicky, crying for hours in the evening. Emma was acting out at school, jealous of the attention the baby required. Daniel was frustrated by his limitations, unable to help as much as he wanted, while his shoulder slowly healed. This isn't working, Sophia said one evening, Grace screaming in her arms while Emma sulked over homework and Daniel struggled to open a jar of baby food with one hand. I'm failing at all of this. You're not failing, Daniel said, finally getting the jar open. You're learning. There's a difference. I should have stayed in my world, Sophia said bitterly. Hired help made it easy. What was I trying to prove? That you're more than your money, Emma said suddenly, looking up from her math worksheet. That's what Daddy said. He said you wanted to prove you could be a real mom without all the fancy stuff. I said that. Daniel looked embarrassed. To Mrs. Chen, I heard you talking. Emma came over to Sophia, gently touching Grace's red face. You know what helps singing, not lullabies, but regular songs. Mom used to sing pop songs to me when I was crying. Dad said it was weird, but it worked. Sophia looked at this little girl who'd lost so much but kept offering love, kept trying to help. What should I sing? Something you like. Something that makes you happy. So Sophia started singing some half-remembered pop song from college badly and off-key. But Grace's cries started to hiccup, then quiet her huge eyes focusing on her mother's face. See, Emma said proudly, you're not failing, you're just learning our tricks. That night after both girls were asleep, Daniel and Sophia sat on the fire escape, the city sprawling below them. His shoulder was still immobilized, but he was getting stronger every day, the color returning to his face, the light to his eyes. I need to tell you something, Sophia said quietly. My father's lawyers called today. Marcus took a plea deal, 25 to life. He gave up his co-conspirators in exchange for protective custody. Daniel was quiet for a moment. How do you feel about that? Relieved, sad, angry? She leaned against his good shoulder. He was my brother for 13 years. We weren't close, but I thought family meant something. Family isn't blood, Daniel said firmly. Family is choice. Mrs. Chen isn't related to us, but she's more grandmother to Emma than her biological grandparents ever were. You're not related to Emma, but you're becoming her mother. Grace has my name, but not my DNA, and I already love her like she's mine. Do you? Sophia looked up at him. Love her. How could I not? She's part of you. She's evidence of your courage, your choice to keep going even when her father walked away. Every time I look at her, I see your strength. When I look at her, I see your sacrifice, Sophia admitted. Without you, she wouldn't exist. That bullet would have found us both. They sat in comfortable silence, the city noise a distant symphony below them. Then Daniel spoke, his voice careful and measured. My shoulder's getting better. Doc says maybe 3 more months of PT and I can start light work. I've been thinking about what comes next. And I can't go back to construction, not the heavy stuff anyway. But I've been talking to a guy about furniture making, custom pieces, restoration work. It's delicate enough that my shoulder can handle it, and the pay's decent once you build a client base. That sounds perfect, Sophia said enthusiastically. You're so good with your hands, and Emma says you used to whittle little animals for her. The thing is, I'd need startup money, tools, workspace materials. I've never taken a loan in my life, always paid cash for everything, but I'm thinking maybe it's time to bet on myself. I could, Sophia started, but Daniel cut her off. No, I need to do this myself, or at least the traditional way. Bank loan, business plan, the whole thing. I need to know I can still provide, still be the man Emma deserves. The man you both deserve. Daniel, you don't have to prove anything. Yes, I do. To myself, if no one else. I've spent 2 years scraping by telling myself it was temporary, that something would change. Then you came along and everything did change, but I can't be the guy who lives off his girlfriend's money. I need to be a partner, not a project. Sophia wanted to argue, to point out that money was just a tool, that his pride was getting in the way of practicality. But she understood pride. She'd walked away from her father's fortune to prove something too. Okay, she said simply. But I have conditions. Conditions. First, you let me be your first customer. I need furniture for the apartment anyway, and I want pieces with a story. Second, you let me help with the business plan. I may have walked away from my trust fund, but I still know how to make a proposal that banks will love. Third, you stop calling me your girlfriend and admit what we really are. Which is, Sophia turned to face him, fully careful of his shoulder. We're a family, Daniel. Messy and complicated and unconventional, but a family. Grace has your name. Emma calls me Mom when she thinks I'm not listening. Mrs. Chen refers to us as the Hayes family, to everyone in the building. The only people not admitting it are us. Daniel's good hand came up to cup her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. You know what admitting it means, right? It means I'm all in. It means I fight for us the way I fight for Emma. It means when things get hard, and they will, we work through it instead of walking away. I know, Sophia whispered. It means choosing each other every day, even when it's difficult, especially when it's difficult. Is that what you want? A broken-down carpenter with a sketchy shoulder and more baggage than an airport. I want the man who jumped in front of a bullet for a stranger, the father who reads 3 bedtime stories even when he's exhausted. The neighbor who fixes Mrs. Chen's leaky faucet without being asked. I want you, Daniel Hayes, exactly as you are. He kissed her, then their first real kiss, careful and tender and full of promise. When they pulled apart, both were breathless. I love you, he said simply. I've been fighting it, telling myself it was too soon, too complicated, too everything. But I love you, Sophia Lane. I love you too, she replied. And just so we're clear, I'm keeping Lane professionally. The foundation is doing too much good to rebrand now. But personally, I think Sophia Hayes has a nice ring to it. Eventually, when you're ready. When we're ready, he corrected. This is a partnership, remember. A cry from inside interrupted them. Grace was awake and hungry. But as they climbed back through the window, Daniel helping Sophia with his good arm, neither felt the exhaustion that had been weighing them down. They felt like what they were, a family, finding its rhythm. The next morning brought unexpected challenges. Emma woke up with a fever. Grace had a diaper rash that made her scream at every change, and the apartment's hot water heater chose that exact moment to break. By noon, everyone was miserable. I'll call a plumber, Sophia said, reaching for her phone. No need, Daniel said, grabbing his toolbox. I can fix it. With one arm. I'll manage. Emma, baby girl, you stay in bed. Sophia, can you handle both girls for an hour? Of course, Sophia said with more confidence than she felt. But as Daniel disappeared to wrestle with the water heater, Grace started crying again, and Emma called weakly from the bedroom that she felt sick. Sophia found herself frozen, overwhelmed by the competing needs. Mrs. Chen appeared like a guardian angel, taking Grace without a word and pointing Sophia toward Emma. One crisis at a time, she said wisely. That's the secret. Sophia found Emma curled up in bed, flushed and miserable. She felt the little girl's forehead, definitely a fever. My tummy hurts, Emma whimpered. I know, sweetheart. Let's get you some medicine and crackers, okay? Mom used to make special tea when I was sick, Emma said, then caught herself. I mean, my first mom. That's okay, Sophia said gently. She's still your mom. She always will be. Do you remember what kind of tea? Chamomile with honey and lemon. She said it was magic tea that made everything better. Sophia made the tea following Emma's careful instructions. As the little girl sipped it slowly, she started to relax. Sophia, can I ask you something? Anything. Are you going to be my real mom, like, officially? Sophia chose her words carefully. I'd like to be if that's what you want, but it doesn't make your first mom less real or less important. I know. Daddy explained that I can have 2 moms, one who gave me life and one who gives me days. Emma paused. That's what Mrs. Chen says you do. You give us days, good days. You give me good days too, Sophia said, smoothing Emma's hair back. Before you and your dad, my days were just empty, full of stuff but empty of meaning. That's sad. It was, but not anymore. By the time Daniel emerged from the basement covered in grime, but victorious, Emma's fever had broken, and Grace was sleeping peacefully in Mrs. Chen's arms. He found Sophia in the kitchen, making soup from scratch, something Mrs. Chen had been teaching her. Hot water's fixed, he announced. Only took 1 arm and a lot of creative cursing. My hero, Sophia said, standing on her toes to kiss his cheek, avoiding the grease smudges. Emma's feeling better. Your magic tea recipe worked. Sarah's recipe. Daniel corrected, then paused. Is that weird? Talking about her. No, she's part of your story, part of Emma's story. We don't have to erase her to move forward. Daniel pulled her close with his good arm. How did you get so wise? I had good teachers. A little girl who sees the world clearly, an elderly woman who's lived through everything, and a man who shows me every day that strength isn't about being perfect, it's about keeping going. Speaking of keeping going, Mrs. Chen interrupted from the doorway, this baby needs her mother, and I need my afternoon nap. As Sophia took Grace, Mrs. Chen patted Daniel's good shoulder. You chose well, both of you. Not many would fight this hard to build something real. That evening, with Emma feeling better and Grace finally settled, they received an unexpected visitor. Harrison Lane stood in their doorway, his expensive suit making him look like he'd been teleported from another world. Daddy, Sophia said, shocked. He'd never come to the building before, always sending cars or meeting her elsewhere. I needed to see where you're living, he said, his eyes taking in the small apartment, the second-hand furniture, the toys scattered on the floor. To understand. Understand what? Why my daughter, who could have anything, chooses this. Daniel stepped forward protective despite his injury. Mr. Lane, you must be Daniel. Harrison extended his hand. The man who saved my daughter's life. They shook hands. Daniel wary Harrison assessing. I came to say thank you, Harrison continued, and to apologize. I've been trying to force Sophia back into her old life, not understanding that she's building something new. He looked around again, his gaze landing on Emma peeking out from behind the bedroom door. Something real. Would you like some coffee, Mr. Lane? Daniel offered, surprising everyone, including himself. I'd like that very much. As they sat around the small kitchen table, Grace and her bouncer and Emma gradually creeping closer to investigate this grandfather figure, Harrison told them something unexpected. I grew up poor, he said simply. Poorer than this. My father worked 3 jobs my mother took in laundry. I built my empire because I never wanted to feel that helpless again. But somewhere along the way, I forgot that the best parts of my childhood weren't about what we didn't have. They were about what we did. Family dinners at a cramped table, my mother singing while she worked, my father teaching me to fix things with my hands. Is that why you're really here? Sophia asked. I'm here because I'm dying, Harrison said quietly. The words fell like stones into still water ripples spreading through the room. What? Sophia gasped. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. My doctors give me 6 months, maybe 8, with treatment. He held up a hand as Sophia started to speak. I've known for 3 months. I didn't want to tell you while you were pregnant, and then with everything that happened with Marcus. Dad, no, Sophia whispered, tears streaming down her face. It's okay, sweetheart. I've made my peace with it, but I realized I was trying to force you back into my world because I was afraid of dying without making sure you were secure. I forgot that security isn't about money. It's about this. He gestured around the table. It's about people who love you without conditions. Daniel reached for Sophia's hand under the table, squeezing tight. There are things we need to discuss, Harrison continued. The company, the foundation, the trusts, but not tonight. Tonight I just wanted to sit with my daughter and meet the family she's chosen. Emma, who'd been listening with wide eyes, suddenly spoke up. Are you sick like my first mom was sick? Harrison looked at the little girl with surprise. No, sweetheart. My body is sick, not my heart or mind. That's good, Emma said solemnly. Body sick can be fixed sometimes. Heart sick is harder. You're very wise for someone so young. I've had to be, Emma said simply. And something in Harrison's expression shifted, recognizing a kindred spirit. They talked until late. Harrison sharing stories of Sophia's childhood that made her blush. Daniel talking about his furniture plans with Harrison, offering business advice, Emma showing off her drawings while Grace slept peacefully through it all. As Harrison prepared to leave, he pulled Daniel aside. Take care of them, he said quietly. I know you will, but I needed to say it. The money will always be there, I've made sure of that, but what you're giving them is worth more. What's that? A chance to be normal, to be loved for who they are, not what they have. That's a gift I could never give my daughter. After he left, Sophia broke down completely sobbing in Daniel's arms while Emma hugged her legs, and even Grace seemed to sense the sadness, fussing quietly. 6 months, Sophia gasped. Maybe 8. It's not enough time. It never is, Daniel said, holding her tight. But we'll make them count, every day, every moment. How do you do it? She asked. How do you keep going when you know loss is coming? You focus on what you have, not what you're losing. You make memories. You say the important things. You love harder than the pain. Over the next weeks, Harrison became a regular presence in their lives. He'd show up for Sunday dinners, bringing desserts from expensive bakeries that Emma devoured. He taught Daniel about investment and business planning. He held Grace for hours, whispering stories about her mother as a baby. He and Mrs. Chen developed an unexpected friendship, bonding over their shared experiences of building something from nothing. He's not what I expected, Daniel admitted to Sophia one evening as they watched Harrison teach Emma chess on a board he'd carved himself as a boy. He never was, Sophia replied. The media sees Harrison Lane billionaire, but I remember him teaching me to ride a bike, staying up all night when I had chickenpox, crying at my college graduation. The money complicated everything, but underneath he was always just Dad. Do you regret walking away from it? No, because I didn't really walk away. I just chose what parts to keep. The foundation does good work. That's his legacy I want to continue. But this life, our life, this is what I choose for myself. Daniel's business plan was approved by the bank 3 weeks later with a loan that would let him rent a small workshop and buy basic equipment. Harrison had offered to invest, but Daniel had politely declined needing to do this on his own terms. Harrison respected that, though he did become Daniel's first official customer, commissioning a dining table for his apartment. I want something that will outlast me, he said simply. Something Grace can inherit that has both her father's hands in it. Daniel threw himself into the work, his shoulder finally healed enough for light labor. He spent long hours in the workshop crafting not just a table, but a work of art, each joint perfect, each surface smooth as silk. Emma would do her homework at the workbench while he worked Grace in her carrier nearby, Sophia bringing dinner so they could eat together. This is nice, Emma said one evening, looking around the sawdust-covered space. It feels like home. A workshop feels like home, Sophia asked, amused. No, being together feels like home, doesn't matter where. The truth of it hit them all. Home wasn't a place, it was this constellation of people who'd chosen each other despite the odds. Harrison's health declined faster than expected. By month 4, he was in hospice care, but still sharp, still fighting. Sophia spent every possible moment with him bringing Grace, including Emma, making sure he knew he was loved. I have a confession, he told her one afternoon, morphine making him loose-tongued. I had Daniel investigated when you first started seeing him. Dad, I had to know who had my daughter's heart. You know what the investigator found. What? Nothing, absolutely nothing, but a man who'd raised his daughter alone, worked himself to the bone, never took shortcuts, never compromised his integrity, even when it would have been easy. Do you know how rare that is? Yes, Sophia said softly. I do. I also had him investigated, Harrison added with a weak smile. The investigator wanted to make sure he was trustworthy. Then I had that investigator investigated. Old habits. Despite everything, Sophia laughed. You're impossible. I'm thorough. There's a difference. Which reminds me there's something I need to tell you about the will. Dad, we don't need to. Yes, we do. I've left the company in trust for Grace and any other children you have. The foundation goes to you to run as you see fit. But there's also something for Daniel and Emma. Dad, Daniel won't accept. He will because it's not charity. It's an investment in his business structured as a loan with favorable terms. He can pay it back over 30 years if he wants prove to himself he earned it. And Emma gets an education trust that can only be accessed for school expenses. See, I can be sneaky too. He'll see right through it. Of course he will. But he'll also see that I'm trying to respect his pride while taking care of my family. All my family. Harrison died on a Tuesday morning with Sophia holding one hand and Daniel holding the other. Emma and Grace nearby with Mrs. Chen. He went peacefully looking at Grace one last time and whispering, "She has your mother's eyes, but your fighter's heart. She'll change the world." The funeral was a strange affair, billionaires and blue-collar workers side by side, the elite of society mixing with Daniel's construction friends and the families from their building. Emma gave a speech that made everyone cry, talking about how Mr. Harrison taught her chess and told her she was smart enough to beat anyone. He said being smart wasn't about knowing everything, she said, standing at the podium in her best dress. It was about learning from everyone. He learned stuff from my dad about building things, and from Mrs. Chen about making tea, and from me about Pokemon. He said every person was a teacher if you listened right. Afterwards, at the reception, Sophia had insisted on holding in their neighborhood community center instead of some fancy hotel people who would never normally speak found themselves in conversation. Harrison's business partners learned about Daniel's furniture from his construction buddies. Society matrons got recipes from Mrs. Chen and the other building grandmothers. Boundaries blurred, walls came down, and Harrison's final lesson became clear: connection mattered more than class. The weeks following Harrison's funeral passed in a blur of legal meetings and paperwork that threatened to drown Sophia in responsibility. She found herself CEO of a foundation with a billion-dollar endowment executor of an estate that made headlines in financial newspapers, and still a new mother trying to figure out how to balance Grace's feeding schedule with board meetings she couldn't postpone. "This is insane," she said one evening, surrounded by legal documents while Grace fussed in her bouncer and Emma tried to do homework at the same cluttered table. "Dad ran all of this for 40 years. How did he manage it?" "He didn't have a baby and a 7-year-old. Daniel pointed out, shifting Grace to his shoulder where she immediately quieted. His furniture business had officially launched the week before, and sawdust clung to his work clothes despite his attempt to brush it off. He also had an army of assistants. "I don't want an army. I want our life just with less paperwork drowning me." She pushed the documents aside, frustrated. "The board wants me to move the foundation offices to a more appropriate location. They think running it from a converted storefront in our neighborhood makes us look unprofessional." "What do you think?" "I think they can stuff their opinions in their expensive briefcases," Sophia said with uncharacteristic venom. "Dad built his empire from a garage. I can run a foundation from a storefront." Emma looked up from her math homework. "You should tell them that, but maybe nicer." "When did you become the diplomat in this family?" Daniel asked, ruffling his daughter's hair. "Someone has to be," Emma replied seriously. "You're too stubborn, Sophia's too proud, and Grace just screams when she doesn't like something." As if to prove her point, Grace let out a wail that had all of them wincing. But before anyone could move Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway with her spare key and her uncanny timing. "Give me that baby," she commanded, taking Grace from Daniel. "You three need to talk without screaming soundtrack." "About what?" Sophia asked, though she knew. They'd been dancing around it for weeks. "About the elephant in the room," Mrs. Chen said bluntly. "The money elephant. The one that's going to trample your relationship if you don't address it." She left with Grace before anyone could protest, leaving them in uncomfortable silence. Daniel spoke first. "She's right. We need to talk about it." "About what?" "The fact that I inherited enough money to buy a small country while you're working 18-hour days to make ends meet." Sophia's voice was sharp with exhaustion and frustration. "Or the fact that you won't let me help because your pride matters more than our family's comfort." "That's not fair." "Isn't it? Emma needed new school shoes last week, and you made her wait until you got paid instead of letting me buy them. You're killing yourself in that workshop while I have money sitting in accounts I don't even know how to access yet." "I'm not taking your father's money," Daniel said firmly. "It's not his anymore. It's mine. Ours. We're a family, remember." "Are we?" Daniel stood abruptly, pacing to the window. "Because families make decisions together. You decided to keep the foundation to take on all these responsibilities without discussing it with me. You decided to turn down Dad's investment without discussing it with me. Stop fighting." Emma's voice cut through their argument like a knife. She was standing now, tears streaming down her face. "You're going to ruin everything, just like Mom and Dad did before she left." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Daniel went pale, and Sophia felt her heart crack. "Emma, sweetheart," Sophia started, but Emma was already running to the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. Daniel sank back into his chair, head in his hands. "She's right. This is exactly what happened with Sarah. Fighting about money, about pride, about everything except what actually mattered." "We're not Sarah and Daniel," Sophia said quietly. "We're us. And we can figure this out without anyone leaving. Can we? Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like we're two people from different worlds trying to force something that maybe isn't meant to work." The words hurt more than Sophia expected. "You don't mean that." "Don't I?" Daniel looked up, his eyes full of pain. "You're a billionaire, Sophia. I'm a carpenter with a bad shoulder and a struggling startup. What are we doing?" "We're loving each other," Sophia said simply. "At least I thought we were." Before Daniel could respond, Mrs. Chen returned with a now calm grace and a stern expression. "Emma is at my apartment," she announced. "She's upset but safe. Now you two are going to sit here and talk like adults who love each other instead of children fighting over toys." She settled herself in a chair like a small but immovable mountain. "I've lived through war, famine, and 3 marriages. I know what kills love and what saves it. Pride kills it. Fear kills it. But honesty, compromise, those save it." "It's not that simple," Daniel protested. "It's exactly that simple," Mrs. Chen countered. "You love her, Mum." "Yes." "You love him?" she asked Sophia. "More than anything." "Then everything else is just details." "Complicated details, yes, but still just details." She stood heading for the door. "I'll keep Emma tonight. You two figure out your details. But remember that little girl has already lost one mother. Don't make her lose another." After she left, Sophia and Daniel sat in silence for a long moment, Grace sleeping peacefully between them, unaware of the tension. "I'm scared," Daniel finally admitted. "Scared that you'll realize you made a mistake slumming it with us. Scared that the money will change everything. Scared that I'll never be enough." "I'm scared too," Sophia confessed. "Scared that my money will always be between us. Scared that you'll resent me for having what you worked so hard for. Scared that we'll let pride destroy something beautiful." "So what do we do?" Sophia stood moving to sit beside him, taking his calloused hand in her manicured one. "We be honest about the challenges. We make decisions together. We remember that the money is just a tool, not a measure of worth." "Easy to say when you have it," Daniel said, but without venom. "Then let me make it easier." Sophia took a deep breath. "I'm putting the entire inheritance except for the foundation funds into a trust. It'll pay out a reasonable yearly amount enough to live comfortably, but not extravagantly. The rest gets locked away for Grace, Emma, and any other kids we might have. That way we're living on what we earn, not what I inherited." Daniel stared at her. "You do that, give up billions." "I'm not giving it up. I'm investing it in our children's future, and I'm choosing to build our present together as equals." She squeezed his hand. "Your business, my foundation work, we build those ourselves. No shortcuts, no easy money. Just us." "The foundation still comes with a massive salary," Daniel pointed out, "which I'll earn by working my ass off to change lives, just like you earn yours creating beautiful things with your hands." She met his eyes. "We both work. We both contribute. We both sacrifice. That's what partners do." Daniel was quiet for a long moment, then pulled her close with his good arm. "Your father would think we're crazy." "No," Sophia said softly. "He'd understand. He built his empire from nothing because he wanted to matter to make a difference. That's what we're doing, just differently." "I need to apologize to Emma," Daniel said. "She shouldn't have to worry about us falling apart. We both do. But first we need to make sure she's right to believe we won't." "Are you proposing?" Daniel asked with a slight smile. "Are you accepting?" "I don't have a ring. Can't afford one that would mean anything compared to what you're used to." Sophia stood walking to a drawer and pulling out a small box. Inside was a simple band, worn and scratched. "This was my mother's. Her original wedding ring from before Dad made his money. She died when I was 3, but Dad kept it. He gave it to me when Grace was born, said I'd know when to use it." Daniel took the ring, examining it in the light. It was plain silver, probably worth less than $100, but the weight of its history made it priceless. Sophia Lane, he said slowly, will you marry a stubborn carpenter who's probably going to drive you crazy with his pride and his need to fix everything himself? Only if Daniel Hayes will marry a spoiled heiress who's trying to learn how to be a real person and probably failing half the time. Deal? He said, slipping the ring onto her finger. They kissed soft and sweet until Grace's hungry cry interrupted them. We should get Emma, Sophia said, picking up the baby to nurse. Tell her together. They found Emma at Mrs. Chen's apartment, curled up on the ancient sofa with hot chocolate and red-rimmed eyes. When she saw them together, her face crumpled. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean to yell. I just got scared. No, baby girl, we're sorry, Daniel said, scooping her up despite his still weak shoulder. We shouldn't have been fighting like that. Adult problems aren't your responsibility. But they affect me, Emma said with that devastating honesty. When you fight, my whole world shakes. We know, Sophia said, joining them on the sofa, Grace still nursing contentedly. That's why we made some decisions. Together. Are you leaving? Emma asked fearfully. Look at Sophia's hand, Daniel suggested. Emma looked gasped and threw her arms around Sophia's neck, careful of Grace. You're getting married. For real married. For real married, Sophia confirmed. If that's okay with you. It's more than okay. Can I be in the wedding? Can Grace? Can Mrs. Chen? Can we have cake? Yes to all of that, Daniel laughed. But it's going to be small, just family. We don't have a lot of family, Emma pointed out. We have enough, Mrs. Chen interjected from the kitchen where she was pretending not to eavesdrop. Quality over quantity. The wedding happened 3 weeks later in the community center where Harrison's memorial had been held. Sophia wore her mother's dress, altered to fit and yellowed with age, but perfect. Daniel wore his only suit, the one he'd bought for job interviews. Emma was the flower girl and ring bearer and self-appointed wedding coordinator, bossing everyone around with 7-year-old authority. Grace slept through most of it in Mrs. Chen's arms. The guests were an eclectic mix, Daniel's construction crew neighbors from the building, a few members of the foundation board who'd become genuine friends, the night shift nurses from the hospital who'd watched their love story unfold. No media, no society pages, no one who mattered to anyone but them. Do you, Sophia Lane, take this man who saved your life by almost dying, who refuses to let you buy him socks even when his have holes, who teaches your daughter that strength isn't about muscles but about showing up every day? The officiant was Mrs. Chen's nephew, a judge who'd flown in from California and decided to add his own flavor to the ceremony. I do, Sophia laughed through tears. And do you, Daniel Hayes, take this woman who gave up everything to gain everything, who burns eggs but makes perfect coffee, who sees you as a hero when you can barely see yourself as adequate? I do, Daniel said, his voice rough with emotion. Then, by the power vested in me by the state of New York and by Mrs. Chen, who threatened me if I mess this up, I pronounce you husband and wife. They kissed to thunderous applause and Emma's delighted squealing. Grace woke up and added her own cry to the celebration. Mrs. Chen wiped tears she'd deny later. The reception was potluck style, everyone bringing something. Daniel's foreman made his famous chili. The foundation's CFO brought wine that cost more than most people's rent, but poured it into paper cups without pretense. Emma performed an interpretive dance she'd choreographed herself that had everyone in stitches. Grace had a massive diaper blowout that required 3 people and an entire package of wipes to handle. It was chaotic and messy and absolutely perfect. No regrets, Daniel asked as they slow danced to music from someone's phone speaker, Emma standing on his feet while Sophia held Grace. Only one, Sophia said. I wish Dad could have been here. He is, Emma said confidently. He's in Grace's eyes and in the foundation's work and in the way you smile when you're really happy. That's what Mrs. Chen says about people who die. They leave pieces of themselves in the people who love them. When did you get so wise? Sophia asked, kissing the top of Emma's head. I've always been wise. You just had to slow down enough to notice. The truth of it hit home. They'd all been running Daniel from his failures, Sophia from her privilege, Emma from her abandonment. But here in this moment, they were still. They were whole. They were family. The first year of marriage wasn't easy. Daniel's business struggled initially, orders slow to come despite the quality of his work. Sophia juggled the foundation's demands with raising Grace and helping Emma with increasingly complex homework. Money was tight by choice, but still a source of tension when Emma needed braces and Daniel insisted on payment plans instead of using Sophia's emergency fund. "This is ridiculous," Sophia exploded one evening after a particularly frustrating argument about medical bills. "We have the money. It's sitting there doing nothing while we stress about orthodontist payments." "It's not doing nothing, it's securing our children's future," Daniel countered. "Their future won't matter if their present is consumed by their parents fighting about money." "Then maybe we need help," Daniel said quietly. "Maybe we need someone neutral to help us figure this out." It was the first time he'd admitted they couldn't solve everything themselves, and Sophia recognized the magnitude of that admission. They found a therapist who specialized in couples with financial disparities, a no-nonsense woman named Dr. Patricia Thornton who called them on their respective issues without taking sides. "Daniel, your pride is costing your family peace," she said bluntly in their third session. "Sophia, your guilt about having money is making you resentful when Daniel won't accept it. You're both so focused on being fair that you're forgetting to be partners." "So what do we do?" Sophia asked. "You create a new normal, one that honors both your need for independence, Daniel, and your desire to contribute fully, Sophia. May I suggest a family budget that you both contribute to proportionally? Daniel, you put in what you earn. Sophia, you match it from your foundation salary. Everything else goes to savings and the children's trusts. That way you're living on what you both earn, but no one's killing themselves to prove a point." It took time, but gradually they found their rhythm. Daniel's business began to thrive as word spread about the furniture maker who'd taken a bullet for a stranger. He hated the attention, but couldn't deny it brought customers. Sophia restructured the foundation to focus on supporting single parents, pursuing education, or starting businesses with Daniel's story as inspiration, even though he refused to let her use his name. Emma flourished in her new stability, her grades soaring and her confidence growing. She still had moments of fear, still sometimes watched her parents anxiously for signs of conflict, but increasingly she relaxed into the certainty that this family was permanent. Grace grew from infant to toddler, with the security of being completely loved. She had Daniel's stubborn streak and Sophia's quick temper, Emma's protectiveness, and Mrs. Chen's uncanny ability to appear wherever food was being prepared. She called Daniel Dada first, sending him into tears he'd deny later. "She knows," he said that night, Grace asleep between them in bed because she'd refused her crib again. "She knows I'm her father, not biologically, but in every way that matters." "Of course she knows," Sophia replied. "She's known since the day you first held her and promised to protect her like you protected me." "I didn't promise that out loud." "You didn't have to. Every time you check on her at night, every time you read her that same board book 15 times in a row, every time you kiss her scraped knees and chase away her bad dreams, you're keeping that promise." As Grace approached her second birthday, life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Daniel's workshop had expanded, requiring him to hire 2 assistants. Sophia's foundation had funded over 100 single parents' educations and dozens of small businesses. Emma had started middle school, terrifying Daniel with her sudden interest in boys and makeup. "She's too young," he said desperately one morning as Emma left for school in lip gloss. "She's 12, Sophia reminded him. "And it's clear lip gloss, basically chapstick with sparkles. Sparkles lead to lipstick. Lipstick leads to dating. Dating leads to—" "Daniel, I'm not ready for this." No parent ever is. But before he could respond, Sophia's phone rang. The call that would change everything, though they didn't know it yet. "Mrs. Hayes, this is Dr. Morrison from Mount Sinai. We have you listed as Sarah Patterson's emergency contact. There's been an accident." Sophia felt the blood drain from her face. Sarah, Emma's biological mother, the woman who'd walked away 3 years ago and never looked back. "Is she—" "She's alive but critical. She's asking for Emma and Daniel." Sophia looked at Daniel, who'd gone rigid at Sarah's name. Emma was at school, blissfully unaware that her carefully constructed world was about to shift again. "We'll be right there," Sophia heard herself say. "What happened?" Daniel asked, his voice hollow. "Car accident. She's asking for you. For Emma." "No." The word was sharp, final. "She left. She doesn't get to waltz back in just because she's dying, Sophia finished gently. Daniel, I know you're angry. You have every right to be, but Emma deserves the chance to say goodbye, to ask her questions, to get closure, or to get her heart broken all over again. Maybe, but that's her choice to make, not ours. Daniel stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Grace toddled after him, wrapping her tiny arms around his leg. He picked her up automatically, holding her close. I can't watch Emma go through that again, he said brokenly. The months after Sarah left, the nightmares, the questions, the wondering what she did wrong. I can't. You won't be watching alone, Sophia reminded him. We'll be there together. All of us. Mrs. Chen, who'd been quietly listening from the kitchen where she was making lunch, spoke up. The girl needs to see her mother. Not for Sarah, but for Emma. Unfinished business becomes heavy burden later. Daniel looked between them, these women who'd become his family, who'd helped him rebuild after Sarah's destruction. What if she tries to take Emma? She can't, Sophia said firmly. She abandoned her. You have full custody. This is just goodbye. But even as she said it, Sophia wondered if anything involving Sarah could be that simple. They picked Emma up from school, her face cycling through emotions as they explained shock, anger, fear, and something that looked dangerously like hope. Is she coming back? Emma asked quietly. Is that why she wants to see me? We don't know, baby girl, Daniel said honestly. She's very sick. She might just want to say goodbye. Or sorry, Emma added bitterly. She should want to say sorry. At the hospital, they found Sarah diminished, a pale shadow of the vibrant woman who'd once lived in their apartment. Machines surrounded her, monitoring vitals that didn't look promising. Daniel, she whispered, her eyes filling with tears. You came. Emma wanted to come, he said stiffly. This is for her, not you. Sarah's eyes moved to Sophia, taking in the wedding ring, the protective hand on Emma's shoulder, the toddler in her arms. You remarried, she said, not a question. This is Sophia, my wife. She's Emma's mother now. Stepmother, Emma corrected quietly, then looked at Sophia apologetically. I mean, you're my mom too, but it's okay, sweetheart, Sophia said. You're allowed to have complicated feelings about complicated things. Sarah watched this interaction with something like wonder. You're happy, all of you. We are, Daniel confirmed. No thanks to you. I know. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I need to explain. Emma deserves to know it wasn't her fault. I've told her that, but she needs to hear it from me. Sarah looked at Emma directly. Baby, what I did had nothing to do with you. You were perfect, are perfect. I was sick in ways that medicine couldn't fix. Depression, they called it later, but it was more than that. It was like drowning in air, like being buried alive in my own mind. Then why didn't you get help? Emma asked, her voice small but fierce. Daddy would have helped. He always helps. I know, but I convinced myself you'd both be better off without me. That my darkness would infect you, hurt you. So I left before I could destroy you. You destroyed us anyway, Emma said bluntly. Daddy cried when he thought I was asleep. I had nightmares for a year. I thought I wasn't good enough to make you stay. Sarah's tears came faster. I'm so sorry, so sorry. I thought I was saving you, but I was just a coward. Yes, Daniel agreed. You were. But you survived, you thrived. You found Sophia and built something beautiful. They built it, Emma corrected. I just got lucky they included me. Oh, sweetheart, Sophia said, pulling Emma close. We're the lucky ones. Sarah watched them, this unit that had formed in her absence, and something like peace crossed her face. I'm dying, she said simply. The accident. There was internal damage they can't fix. Days, maybe a week. I wanted to find you to apologize, to see if maybe... But I see you don't need me. You never did. That's not true, Daniel said unexpectedly. Everyone looked at him in surprise. Emma needed you. She needed her mother. But when you couldn't be that, she found another way. We found another way. Not because we didn't need you, but because we had to survive without you. Sarah nodded, understanding the distinction. I have some things. Not much, but letters I wrote to Emma over the years, but never sent. Jewelry from my mother. Could she have them when she's ready? Sophia said, speaking for the first time. We'll keep them safe until she's ready. Sarah studied her, this woman who'd stepped into the void she'd left. Thank you for loving them. Thank you, Sophia replied carefully, for leaving them whole enough to love. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was acknowledgement. Sarah seemed to understand that was all she could hope for. Emma stepped forward, her small face serious. I'm glad you're sorry. I'm glad you explained. But I'm also glad you left, because if you hadn't, Sophia wouldn't be my mom, and Grace wouldn't be my sister, and we wouldn't be a real family. So thank you for leaving, and I hope you find peace, but I don't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The honesty was brutal, but Sarah nodded. That's fair. More than fair. They left shortly after Emma, quiet but not devastated, Daniel tense but not angry. Sophia protective but not possessive. Grace, oblivious to the drama, sang nonsense songs in her car seat. Are you okay? Sophia asked Emma as they drove home. I think so. Is that weird? She's dying and I feel relieved. Like now I know for sure she's not coming back to mess things up. That's not weird, Daniel said. That's honest. And honest is what we do, Emma said, repeating something Sophia often said. Even when it's hard. Sarah died 4 days later. They attended the small funeral, Emma placing a drawing on the casket. A picture of their family, all of them together with Sarah as a small figure in the corner, separated but acknowledged. She was part of our story, Emma explained, even if she wasn't part of our ending. The months following Sarah's funeral brought an unexpected peace to their household, as if her ghost had finally been laid to rest. Emma processed her grief in therapy, working through complicated feelings with a child psychologist who specialized in abandonment issues. Some days were harder than others, but the foundation of love surrounding her held firm. Daniel threw himself into his work with renewed energy, as if Sarah's death had released him from invisible chains. His furniture business expanded beyond custom pieces to restoration work for historical buildings, bringing in steady contracts that finally provided real financial stability. He hired 2 more craftsmen, both single fathers he'd met through Sophia's foundation, understanding firsthand their need for flexible schedules. You're building an empire, Sophia teased one evening, reviewing his quarterly reports, while Grace colored enthusiastically on papers that were thankfully not important. I'm building a legacy, Daniel corrected, pulling her onto his lap despite her protests about the paperwork. Something the girls can be proud of, something that says their father was more than just a guy who got shot once. You were never just that, Sophia said firmly, kissing him soundly. You were the hero who changed everything. Gross, Emma announced from the doorway, though she was smiling. Also, Grace is eating crayons again. Indeed, Grace had moved from coloring to taste testing her face covered in waxy red streaks. Yummy, she declared proudly. Your daughter is going to be an artist, Daniel said, scooping Grace up, or possibly a food critic. She's our daughter, Sophia corrected, and Daniel's smile could have lit the entire building. But life had a way of throwing curves when you least expected them. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while Sophia was in a foundation board meeting. Her assistant knocked apologetically, whispering that it was urgent from Emma's school. Mrs. Hayes, this is Principal Morrison. There's been an incident with Emma. Sophia's heart stopped. Is she hurt? No, she's not injured, but she's been in a fight, a physical altercation with another student. We need you to come immediately. Sophia found Emma in the principal's office, sporting a split lip and defiant eyes. Across from her sat a boy with a black eye, forming his parents already there and looking furious. What happened? Sophia asked, keeping her voice calm despite her racing heart. Your daughter attacked my son, the boy's mother snapped, completely unprovoked. That's a lie, Emma burst out. He said, Emma, Principal Morrison interrupted firmly. Let me explain to your mother. She turned to Sophia. According to witnesses, Emma overheard Marcus making comments about her family's situation. When she confronted him verbally, he made additional remarks. and Emma responded physically. "What did he say?" Sophia asked, though she could guess. Emma's jaw clenched. "He said you weren't my real mom, that Dad only married you for money, that Grace was a bastard, and we were all trash playing dress-up." The room went silent. Sophia felt rage bloom in her chest, hot and protective. She looked at the boy who had the grace to look ashamed. "I see," she said coolly. "And what consequences will Marcus face for his verbal assault?" "Verbal assault," Marcus's father scoffed. "Boys will be boys, sticks and stones. Words can be weapons." Sophia interrupted her voice, taking on the steel she'd learned from her father's boardrooms. "Your son attacked my daughter's family with cruel, calculated words designed to hurt. She defended us. Perhaps if you taught your son basic human decency, his eye wouldn't be swelling shut right now. How dare you? No, how dare you raise a child who thinks it's acceptable to attack other children's families?" Emma will accept whatever punishment the school deems appropriate for the physical altercation, but I expect Marcus to face equal consequences for instigating it with his cruelty. Principal Morrison cleared her throat. Both students will receive 3 days suspension. Marcus will also attend sensitivity training. Emma, you'll need to complete anger management sessions with the school counselor. "That's fair, Sophia agreed, standing. "Come on, Emma. Your father needs to hear about this." In the car, Emma finally broke down. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I know I shouldn't have hit him, but he kept saying awful things, and I just snapped." "I understand," Sophia said, pulling over to hug her properly. "I'm not condoning violence, but I understand defending your family. We'll deal with the consequences together." "Dad's going to be disappointed." "Maybe. Or maybe he'll understand better than you think." Daniel's reaction surprised them both. After hearing the full story, he pulled Emma into a fierce hug. "Violence isn't the answer," he said carefully, "but sometimes standing up for your family means standing up to bullies. I'm proud of you for defending us, even if I wish you'd found another way. You're not mad." "I'm mad at that boy's parents for raising a cruel child. I'm mad at a world that makes you feel like you have to physically fight to defend our family's validity. But mad at you. No, baby girl, never at you for loving us that fiercely." During Emma's suspension, she spent her days at Daniel's workshop, learning to sand wood and repair furniture. It was meditative work, and Daniel used the time to share stories about his own childhood, about fighting his way through foster care, about choosing to build rather than destroy. "Every piece of furniture has flaws," he explained, showing her how to work with wood grain instead of against it. "But those flaws make it unique, make it real. Same with families. We're not perfect, but we're real." "Marcus's family looks perfect," Emma said bitterly. "Looking perfect and being perfect are different things. That boy's cruelty came from somewhere, probably from parents who care more about appearances than character." "Sophia taught me that," Emma said, running her hand along a smooth table surface. "That real wealth isn't money. It's having people who love you no matter what." "Smart woman, your mom." "Which one?" Emma asked with a small smile. "Both in different ways. Sarah was smart enough to know she couldn't be what you needed. Sophia was smart enough to know she could." Meanwhile, Sophia was dealing with her own crisis at the foundation. One of their major donors, a conservative businessman named Richard Carlyle, had heard about Emma's suspension and was threatening to pull his funding. "I can't support an organization run by someone who condones violence," he said pompously during an emergency board meeting. "I don't condone violence," Sophia replied evenly. "I condone a 12-year-old girl defending her family against verbal abuse. She gave that boy a black eye. And he gave her wounds that won't show but will take longer to heal. Words matter, Mr. Carlyle. The words we use about families that don't look like ours, about love that doesn't fit neat categories, about children who've survived abandonment and found new hope. Those words shape the world our children inherit. You're being overdramatic. Am I my daughter? And yes, she is my daughter in every way that matters. Was told she was worthless because her family was built through choice rather than just blood. If your funding depends on her accepting that abuse silently, then we don't want your money." The room went quiet. Other board members shifted uncomfortably. Carlyle's donation was significant, nearly $1 million annually. You'd lose my funding over this, he asked, disbelieving. I'd lose every penny before I'd teach Emma that money matters more than dignity, Sophia said firmly. This foundation exists to support non-traditional families, single parents, people rebuilding their lives. If we can't stand behind those values when it costs us something, then we're just playing charity games. I agree with Sophia, said unexpected voice. Margaret Chen. No relation to their Mrs. Chen, was their quietest board member, a widow who'd built a tech company from nothing. I'll double my contribution to cover Carlyle's loss if necessary. As will I, added James Rodriguez, whose own son had been raised by a single father. One by one, other board members voiced support. Carlyle left in a huff, but Sophia felt victorious. She'd stood for her family just as Emma had, just with different weapons. That evening, they celebrated Emma's return to school with homemade pizza, the kitchen a disaster of flour and sauce. Grace helped by eating cheese directly from the bag and getting tomato sauce in her hair. I heard what you did, Emma said quietly to Sophia while Daniel was giving Grace a desperately needed bath. At the foundation, Mrs. Rodriguez told her husband, and he told his son, and Bobby told me. News travels fast in middle school. You stood up for us. For me. Always, Sophia said simply. That's what mothers do. Emma hugged her tightly. I'm glad you're my mom. Both my moms taught me something important. Sarah taught me that leaving can be love if staying would hurt more, and you taught me that staying is love when it's a choice you make every day. When did you become so wise? Tuesday, Emma said solemnly, then giggled. Also, I've been seeing a therapist for 3 years. Dr. Kim says I have unusual emotional intelligence for my age. Dr. Kim is right. The school year progressed with fewer dramatic incidents. Emma's suspension actually elevated her social status, standing up to Marcus Whitman, whose father owned half the commercial real estate in their district, made her something of a folk hero among the kids who didn't fit the traditional mold. Grace started preschool, a moment that left both Daniel and Sophia emotional. She marched in with her dinosaur backpack and didn't look back too excited about new friends and finger painting to notice her parents' tears. She doesn't need us, Daniel said mournfully. She'll always need us, Sophia corrected, just differently as she grows. I'm not ready for her to grow. No parent ever is. Daniel's business continued to thrive enough that he could move to a larger workshop and hire additional staff. The loan from Harrison's estate sat untouched. He was determined to pay it back with interest. Even though the terms were so favorable, it was basically a gift. Your pride is showing again, Sophia teased, but she understood. Daniel needed to build something that was entirely his success, that no one could attribute to his wife's money. One evening, as spring turned to summer, they received an unexpected visitor. A woman in her 60s, well-dressed but nervous, knocked on their apartment door. Can I help you? Sophia asked, not recognizing her. I'm looking for Daniel Hayes. I'm his mother. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Daniel appeared behind Sophia, his face cycling through emotions, shock, anger, confusion. You're dead, he said flatly. They told me you died when I was 8. They lied, the woman Patricia said softly. I was in prison. Drug charges. By the time I got out, you were in foster care and they wouldn't tell me where. I've been looking for 20 years. 20 years, Daniel repeated, his voice dangerous. 20 years of thinking I was an orphan, 20 years of fighting through foster care alone. And now you just show up. I know I have no right. You're right, you don't. Daniel started to close the door, but Emma appeared curious about the visitor. Who's this? She asked innocently. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. I'm your grandmother, Daniel's mother. Emma's eyes widened. Dad, you have a mom? I thought she was dead. So did I, Daniel said grimly. Emma, go to your room. But now... Emma went, but not before shooting a curious look at Patricia. Grace, thankfully, was already asleep. You need to leave, Daniel told Patricia. Please just let me explain. Explain what? How you chose drugs over your 8-year-old son. How you let me believe I was alone in the world. How you show up now when I finally have my life together. Expecting what exactly? Nothing, Patricia said quietly. I expect nothing. I just, I needed to see you, to know you were okay, to apologize even though I know it's not enough. It's not, Daniel agreed. It's not even close to enough. Sophia watched this interaction, her heart breaking for both of them. She could see the pain in Daniel's eyes, the little boy who'd been abandoned shining through the man's anger. But she could also see the regret in Patricia's face, the weight of decades of loss. Daniel, she said softly, maybe we should hear her out. Daniel turned on her. There is no we in this. This is my mother who abandoned me, my pain, my choice. You're right, Sophia agreed. But Emma heard. She's going to have questions. And secrets have a way of poisoning families. Daniel's jaw clenched, but he stepped aside. 5 minutes. That's all you get. Patricia entered nervously, taking in the small but warm apartment, the children's artwork on the walls, the photos of their blended family. You've built something beautiful, she said softly. No thanks to you. I know. Patricia sat carefully on the edge of the couch. I was an addict, young, stupid, and selfish. Your father left when you were 2, couldn't handle my using. I told myself I was functioning, that I was still a good mother, but I wasn't. The night they arrested me, you were home alone, 8 years old and trying to make yourself dinner because I was too high to remember you needed to eat. Daniel flinched at the memory. They put you in emergency foster care. I signed away my rights, thinking it would be temporary, that I'd get clean and get you back. But prison changed me in ways I didn't expect. When I got out 3 years later, I was clean but broken. I convinced myself you were better off without me, that showing up would only hurt you more. So you let me think you were dead. The system told you that, not me. By the time I found out you were 18 and gone, I've hired private investigators, searched social media, everything. It wasn't until the news story about you saving that woman, saving Sophia, that I finally found you. The shooting was 3 years ago, Sophia pointed out quietly. I know. I've been working up the courage for 3 years, watching from afar, seeing you build this family, these businesses. I didn't want to disrupt your happiness, but I'm sick now, cancer, and I couldn't die without trying to apologize. The word cancer hung heavy in the room. Sophia thought of Harrison, of Last Chances and Final Conversations. You're dying, Daniel asked, his voice slightly less harsh. Maybe. Probably. Treatment might buy me a year or 2, but... Patricia shrugged. I'm not here for sympathy. I'm here to say I'm sorry that I loved you even when I was too broken to show it, and that I'm proud of the man you became despite me. Daniel stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Emma had crept back to the hallway, listening despite being told to stay in her room. Sophia saw her and made a decision. Emma, come here. Emma came sheepishly. I'm sorry, It's okay. This affects you too. Sophia looked at Daniel. She should be part of this conversation. Daniel nodded reluctantly. Emma sat beside Sophia, studying Patricia with curious eyes. You're really my grandmother. Biologically, yes, Patricia answered carefully. But being a grandmother is about more than biology, and I haven't earned that title. Why did you leave my dad? I was sick, addicted to drugs. I made terrible choices that hurt him. Like my first mom, Emma said quietly. She was sick in her heart and left. But it still hurt. Yes, Patricia agreed. It still hurt. And I'm sorry for that hurt. Emma looked at Daniel. Are you going to forgive her? I don't know, Daniel answered honestly. Forgiveness isn't something you just decide. It's something you work toward. Dr. Kim says forgiveness is for us, not them, Emma offered. That holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Your Dr. Kim sounds wise, Patricia said with a small smile. She is. She also says family is complicated, and that's okay. Emma looked between the adults. Maybe we could be complicated family, not pretending everything's fine, but not pretending you don't exist either. Daniel looked at his daughter, this wise child who'd survived her own abandonment and come out compassionate rather than bitter. What would that look like? He asked carefully. I don't know, Emma admitted. Maybe letters first, or coffee sometimes, baby steps, like when Grace was learning to walk. I don't deserve even that, Patricia said quickly. If you want me to leave and never contact you again, I will. That's what Sarah thought, Emma said. That we were better off without her, but she was wrong. We were better off with the truth, even if it hurt. Secrets are what poison families, not truth. Daniel looked at Sophia seeking support or permission or something. She took his hand, squeezing gently. Whatever you decide, we're here, she said simply. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, then exhaled heavily. Letters. We can start with letters. Emma's right secrets poison families, and I won't have Grace growing up not knowing she has a grandmother, even a complicated one. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. That's more than I deserve. Yes, Daniel agreed. It is. But my daughter is teaching me that sometimes grace isn't about what people deserve. Patricia left with their mailing address and a fragile hope. After she was gone, Daniel collapsed on the couch, emotionally exhausted. You did the right thing, Sophia said, curling into his side. I feel like I just opened a door I've kept locked for 30 years. Maybe it needed opening, Emma suggested, squeezing in on his other side. Like when we cleaned out the storage unit and found all that stuff we forgot we had. Some of it was garbage, but some was treasure. And some was both, Daniel added. Thinking of Sarah's letters to Emma, still unopened but saved. Exactly. Complicated family. Grace woke then, padding out in her dinosaur pajamas, rubbing sleepy eyes. Why everybody's sad? Not sad baby, Daniel said, pulling her onto his lap. Just feeling big feelings. Oh, ice cream helps with big feelings. Does it now? Sophia laughed. Mrs. Chen says so. Well, if Mrs. Chen says so, who are we to argue? So they had ice cream at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night. 4 people who'd chosen each other despite everything building something beautiful from broken pieces. Patricia's letters started coming weekly, careful and respectful, never asking for more than Daniel was willing to give. She shared stories of his early childhood that he'd forgotten medical history that proved useful when Grace needed testing for allergies and gradual glimpses of a woman trying to make amends with limited time. After 6 months of letters, Daniel agreed to meet for coffee. Sophia offered to come, but he went alone, needing to face this particular ghost himself. She looks older than her years, he said when he returned. Worn down by regret more than cancer. We talked for an hour. She didn't ask for anything, just wanted to hear about my life. How do you feel? Like I'm 8 years old and 38 simultaneously. Like I want to scream at her and hug her at the same time. Like forgiveness might be possible, but trust never will be. That's okay, Sophia said. Not every relationship needs to be complete. Some can just be what they are. As winter approached, their lives had settled into a new rhythm that included Patricia's peripheral presence. She sent birthday cards, contributed to the girls' college funds despite Daniel's protests, and occasionally joined them for Sunday dinner when Daniel felt strong enough to handle it. It was at one of these dinners that Grace made an announcement that stunned everyone. I want a brother, she declared, stabbing her chicken with determination. Well, sweetie, that's not really something we can just order from Amazon, Sophia said carefully. Why not? You ordered my bike from Amazon. Babies are different, Daniel explained, trying not to laugh. Then where do they come from? Grace asked with 3-year-old intensity. Emma giggled. Oh, this should be good. When 2 people love each other very much. Sophia started, but Grace interrupted. Like you and Daddy? Yes, like me and Daddy. Then make a brother. You love each other very much, so make a brother. Patricia, who'd been quietly eating, suddenly choked on her water, coughing to hide laughter. It's more complicated than that, Daniel said, shooting his mother a look. Everything's complicated in this family, Emma observed. Why should babies be different? Later that night, after the girls were asleep and Patricia had gone home, Daniel and Sophia sat on their fire escape, despite the cold, wrapped in a blanket together. She's not wrong, Sophia said quietly. Who? Grace. About a brother. Or another sister. Daniel turned to look at her. Are you saying? I'm saying maybe we should talk about it. Emma's 13, Grace is 3. If we're going to expand our complicated family, now might be the time. Can we afford it? The foundation is stable, your business is thriving, and we've got savings now. Not fortune-level money, but enough. That's not what I meant, Daniel said. Can we afford it emotionally? We've been through so much, the shooting, Sarah, my mother, everything. Are we strong enough to add more chaos? I think the chaos has made us stronger, Sophia said. We've been tested in every possible way, and we're still here, still choosing each other. You really want another baby? I want your baby, Sophia corrected. A child that's ours from the start, no complicated history, no one else's claim, just ours. Daniel kissed her deeply, pouring everything he couldn't say into the connection. When they pulled apart, both were breathless. Okay, he said simply. Okay, but let's make Grace a brother or sister. Let's make our complicated family a little more complicated. You know, Sophia said with a grin, we could start trying right now. Mrs. Hayes, are you propositioning me on a fire escape in December? Mr. Hayes, I absolutely am. They barely made it inside before clothes started coming off, laughing and shushing each other to not wake the girls. It was different from their early days, less desperate, more playful, built on a foundation of absolute trust. Afterward, lying tangled together in their small bed, Daniel traced patterns on Sophia's bare shoulder. What are you thinking? She asked. That 3 years ago I was unemployed alone except for Emma and convinced that's all I'd ever be. Then you literally ran into my life and everything changed. You changed everything, Sophia corrected. You showed me what courage really looked like, what love really meant. We saved each other. No, Sophia said thoughtfully. We chose each other. That's better than saving. Anyone can save someone in a moment of crisis. It takes real courage to choose them every day after, even when they come with a criminal mother and a dead ex. Especially then. Besides, I came with assassination attempts and evil stepbrothers. We're even. They fell asleep wrapped around each other, not knowing that their trying had already worked, that in 9 months they'd welcome Thomas Harrison Hayes into their beautifully complicated family. He would have Daniel's stubborn chin and Sophia's green eyes, Emma's protective nature, and Grace's fierce independence. But that was the future. That night they were simply Daniel and Sophia, two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way and built something extraordinary from the wreckage of their separate pasts.